One of the most important ingredients of any good Western is the classic showdown scene. So let's take a look back across the genre to rank the top 20 most memorable Western duels of all time. So at number 20, we have Young Guns 2, with the scene in which Billy the Kid confronts John Chisholm about an unpaid debt of $500. However, when Chisholm refuses to pay up, Billy decides to make a scene.
Yoo-hoo! I'll make you famous.
So what follows is a tense, volatile showdown in which Billy promises to kill a henchman for every $5 that he's owed, all without a gun, perfectly conveying the legendary outlaw's infamous bravado and cunning, with Billy unsurprisingly coming out on top with more than a little help from his pals.
Dave.
Up next, we have The Big Gun Down, an underrated spaghetti western starring Lee Van Cleef as Jonathan Corbett, a bounty hunter who agrees to pursue a Mexican outlaw who is famous for his use of knives. But when it becomes clear that his target is actually innocent and has been framed, Corbett offers the outlaw an opportunity to get revenge on the real culprit of his supposed crimes, truly putting his knife skills to the test. And this leads to a totally unique one-on-one duel set to a typically excellent score by Ennio Morricone, that ends with justice being served right between the eyes. At number 18, we have Silverado, with the final showdown between the heroic Payden and the corrupt Sheriff Cobb. And in a tribute to classic westerns of yesteryear, the whole scene takes place on the dusty street of an empty frontier town, with tumbleweeds blowing between them on the wind. So us as the audience know exactly what's coming next. In fact, even the characters themselves seem to know, bidding each other farewell before the beautifully shot standoff ends with a bang, and a dramatic swell of the movie's epic orchestral score. At number 17, we have Open Range, as Cowboys boss Spearman and Charlie Waite realize that they have no other option left but to face corrupt rancher Denton Baxter and his gang head-on. And in many ways, the whole movie has been leading up to this confrontation, with the tension unable to get much higher. So in a brilliant subversion of expectations from director Kevin Costner, Charlie says,
"You the one killed our friend?"
That's right. I shot the boy too, and I enjoyed it.
So with the showdown over in the blink of an eye, the standoff immediately descends into a chaotic town-wide gunfight, full of innovative cinematography and supremely effective sound design. Next up, we have The Grand Duel, a hidden gem of a spaghetti western, which true to its title ends with an intense final showdown between the ruthless Saxon brothers and Sheriff Clayton, played by Lee Van Cleef. And what follows is a heartfelt homage to previous spaghetti westerns, with lots of Sergio Leone-inspired cinematography and an operatic score, leading to a chaotic climax in which everybody catches a bullet. At number 15, we have Quigley Down Under, with the climactic duel between long-range shooting expert Matthew Quigley and his ex-employer Elliot Marston, who at this stage has had more than enough of him meddling with his plans. So knowing that Quigley is severely injured, he smugly arms his foe and says,
"I seem to remember you're not too familiar with Colonel Colt's revolver, so this will be your first lesson."
However, despite being outnumbered and outgunned, Quigley gets one last chance to demonstrate his shooting ability, thanks to the well-seeded twist that he is actually trained with a revolver, leading to the very satisfying and long overdue defeat of his cocky former employer. At number 14, we have Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, in which the pair insist a group of Bolivian bandits hand over money that they've been hired to return. But despite their best efforts to negotiate through a language barrier, Sundance can sense that things aren't going to end well, and asks Butch,
"Can you take the two on the right?"
Kid, there's something I think I ought to tell you. I never shot anybody before.
One hell of a time to tell me.
So with the odds now firmly stacked against them, the scene is another great example of the way the movie perfectly blends tense moments with a light-hearted tone, as the duo have no choice but to demonstrate their deadliness. Up next, we have The Quick and the Dead. Now, given that this western actually revolves around a dueling competition, there are unsurprisingly more than a few memorable showdowns that could make it onto this list. Although, easily the most satisfying one is between Sharon Stone's The Lady and Gene Hackman's John Herod, providing an emotionally charged face-off set against the backdrop of a ruined town. And director Sam Raimi uses every trick in the book to amp up the tension, with lots of dramatic camera angles and fast-paced editing, before delivering a fittingly stylized conclusion to the central conflict of the movie.
I told you!
At number 11, we have The Magnificent Seven, with another face-off featuring James Coburn, this time playing Brit. And on this occasion, the showdown comes pretty early on in the movie, as a means of introducing the character as a no-nonsense deadly knife thrower. So when one of his arrogant contemporaries says,
Get up! Get up, I said!
Brit does just that, appearing so calm and collected that his opponent actually starts to wonder if he might have made a mistake, before Brit's lightning-fast reflexes all but confirm as much, instantly establishing Brit as one of the coolest members of the Seven. At number 10, we have Django, in which the titular character finds himself severely injured in a desolate graveyard, desperately trying to prepare for his final stand against Major Jackson and his men. And the whole scene has a real sense of hopelessness about it, making it seem as if Django has no chance of surviving, as Jackson casually shoots at him as if he's nothing more than a wounded animal. But this makes it all the more satisfying when the cunning Django suddenly turns the tables, killing Jackson before wearily wandering out of the cemetery to face another day, cementing him as one of the most memorable spaghetti western anti-heroes of all time. At number 8, we have Shane, for the duel in which Alan Ladd's titular hero faces up to the ruthless gunslinger Jack Wilson, played by Jack Palance. And in many ways, the two characters feel like mirror images of each other, one a classic hero and the other an archetypal villain, unable to coexist, making violence all but a necessity, as much as Shane wishes that wasn't the case. As such, the final showdown feels unbelievably tense and monumental, with its use of silence and long pauses making it all the more impactful, ahead of its sudden, violent conclusion. At number 6, we have Tombstone, with the showdown between Doc Holliday and Johnny Ringo. Now initially, Ringo was actually expecting to face Wyatt Earp, hence his surprise when a sickly Doc Holliday appears and says,
I'm your huckleberry.
Now this twist perfectly undercuts Ringo's trademark bravado, as he and the audience realise that the two quickest guns in the film are about to face off, massively adding to the tension and unpredictability of the scene. But in the end, Doc proves to be the fastest draw, delivering a satisfying, brutal end to one of the most memorable villains in the movie. Up next, we have A Fistful of Dollars, in which Clint Eastwood's Joe returns from the brink of death to face off against the villainous Ramon and his henchmen. And although it initially appears to be a very one-sided confrontation, Joe cleverly turns the standoff into a battle of wits, by secretly wearing body armor underneath his poncho. So as Ramon repeatedly shoots Joe in the chest to seemingly no effect, the suspense really starts to build, heightened by a haunting score from Ennio Morricone and a typically stoic performance from Clint Eastwood. Until finally, Joe puts his confused opponent out of his misery, outdrawing him with effortless precision in a scene that instantly established Eastwood and Leone as masters of their craft. At number 4, we have High Noon, featuring possibly one of the most famous Western showdowns of all time. In fact, the entire film meticulously builds to this dramatic confrontation between heroic Marshal Will Kane and the villainous outlaw Frank Miller, who has made it clear that he'll return to town at noon to seek his revenge. And as the clock steadily ticks towards noon, the tension mounts ever higher, until Kane is left to face Miller and his gang completely alone, after the townsfolk decide to abandon him. And the scene does a great job of conveying his hopelessness and the crippling weight of his responsibility ahead of a swift and unglamorous shootout full of twists and turns, as well as a very bittersweet victory for Kane. Up next, we have For a Few Dollars More, which delivers one of the most dramatic and methodical duels of all time, between Colonel Douglas Mortimer, played by Lee Van Cleef, and the sadistic bandit Al Indio, played by Gian Maria Volonte. And the scene is famous for the way in which it builds tension through the use of a musical pocket watch, which plays a haunting melody that counts down to the moment that they draw their guns. And all the while, Sergio Leone's signature use of close-ups adds to the intensity, locking onto every flicker of emotion and each twitch of their fingers. Until, at last, the final note of the watch chimes, prompting Mortimer to draw first, outgunning El Indio in an iconic standoff that's not just about revenge, but also honor and redemption. At number 2, we have the unforgettable duel from Once Upon a Time in the West, in which Charles Bronson's harmonica faces off against Henry Fonda's Frank. And from start to finish, the scene feels operatic, with every shot, glance, and pause forcing the tension higher and higher. And all the while, Ennio Morricone's score grows in the background, really adding to the emotional weight of the scene, having just revealed the truth about why harmonica hates Frank so much. So when he suddenly prevails over his seemingly unstoppable foe, it feels like a monumental victory, and one of the greatest duels that the genre has ever seen. So finally, at number 1, we have the iconic Mexican standoff between Blondie, Tuco, and Angel Eyes in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So having raced against each other all movie to find a hidden fortune, the three main players of the film suddenly find themselves with no other way to settle their differences but to face off, doing so in a vast abandoned cemetery. So the tension was already high enough, but director Sergio Leone decided to take it one step further by spending the next 5 minutes using extreme close-ups and quick cutting between faces, eyes, and hands to create a suffocating sense of anticipation, further amplified by an epic score from Ennio Morricone. So when their guns do finally fire, leaving Angel Eyes dead in the dust, it feels like a huge relief. And in hindsight, darkly comedic, given that Blondie actually rigged the whole encounter before it even began. But either way, this epic three-way showdown still stands head and shoulders above the rest as the best Western duel of all time, which had such a huge impact on pop culture that you can still feel its influence even now. Although, with that being said, let me know below what would be your top pick, and are there any showdowns that you think I might have missed? Also, while you're here, you might want to check out this video right here.